On this edition of Southern Newsweek, a Dunedin family loses everything in a house fire, but the community comes to the rescue, and there's more trouble for Invercargill's embattled mayor. Also, Dunedin City Councillor Lee Vandervis has his day in court over allegations of shouting. Kia ora, I'm Daryl Baser. Thousands of dollars have been raised online to help a Dunedin family after their home was destroyed by fire. Portobello tenant Alice Hudson yelled for her children to get out moments before their home went up in flames. More than $20,000 has been raised to help a Portobello family whose home was destroyed by fire on Saturday. 100km/h winds fanned the blaze, which destroyed the family's rented home in a matter of minutes and led to the evacuation of surrounding homes. Almost as soon as the fire was out, the family was inundated with donations of clothing, money and other valuables as the Portobello and wider Dunedin communities came out to support them. Fire and Emergency New Zealand Incident Controller Pete Douglas says firefighters focused on saving the surrounding buildings in what were extreme conditions.
The first two arriving crews did extremely well to stop it from spreading into their property. At this stage we have one structure that is 80% plus damaged by fire. We also have a lot of spot fires that are still occurring at this point behind the properties.
Alice Hudson says she saw puffs of smoke, then the trees on the property catching fire in the windy conditions. A loud bang came shortly after the fire started, which was her car exploding. Douglas says the whole situation was volatile, so residents were evacuated.
We have residents from the street being put in the town hall due to the fact of the smoke and the spot fires as well, incurring possibly more hazard to those occupants. We have the police looking after that sector, and we believe it won't be long before they should be able to come back as well.
28 residents from 14 surrounding homes were taken to the nearby hall. But Civil Defence says most evacuees were back in their homes later on Saturday night. Fire Officer Douglas says Saturday's blustery conditions exacerbated the situation.
The wind is really working against us at the moment, but we're slowly getting on top of it. I believe within around about half an hour or so we will have this fully under control. The wind will dictate those actions that we have.
The fire was also devastating for the owners of the Beaconsfield Road property, Heather and Warren Morris, who purchased the home in 1989 to live in, but had been renting it out in recent years. In Dunedin, the South Today. Questions are being asked how the Invercargill City Council can work together after Mayor Sir Tim Shadbolt hit out at an external review of the council. Sir Tim's position seems to have changed since the meeting on November 12th, where all councillors, including the Mayor, voted to support the findings of the review. Invercargill's embattled mayor is hitting out at an independent review which states he's not up to doing the job.
I'm conflicted because as mayor of the city, it's my job to provide assurance to the public that they have trust and confidence in the way our council operates. However, I also need to assure the public that I am capable of leading the council and must set the record straight.
The review found most of the council's tensions stem from a leadership void, with the mayor increasingly unable to carry out his duties. But Sir Tim is laying the blame on a faction within council and a lack of support from council staff.
The report would have to have you believe that the dysfunction of this current council rests squarely on the shoulders of myself and my new deputy, Nobby Clark.
Current councillor and former Deputy Mayor Darren Ludlow says councillors were left confused by the Mayor's monologue and change of stance from 3 weeks ago. Ludlow says everyone on council has to accept responsibility for the failings in the report, but Sir Tim says people who believe the report may also believe in flying pigs.
Anyone who has any faith in this report with its glowing praises and singularly directed criticisms is also likely to believe that we shall soon see Auckland Island pigs flying over Queen's Park.
The report's author is former Dunedin City Councillor and Southern District Health Board member Richard Thompson, who says it wasn't easy to write this report about someone with the mana and standing of Sir Tim. In Invercargill, the South Today. A Dunedin City councillor is seeking to have a mark on his record set aside and is taking the issue to court. Councillor Lee Vandervis has asked for a judicial review of the decision by his fellow councillors following an incident with a DCC staff member last year.
An investigation into the censuring of Dunedin City Councillor Lee Vandervis over an exchange with a staff member about parking was flawed and unfair, the High Court has been told. A council investigation found Vandervis to have behaved in an aggressive, loud and intimidating fashion during the incident last year. His lawyer Len Anderson QC told the court in Dunedin today that independent investigator David Benham should not have been appointed and the investigation was not fair. He says the council's censure of Vandervis should be set aside. The DCC's position is that Vandervis's case is narrow and technical. The incident relates to Vandervis making a complaint to a council staff member about parking. The complainant's version of events was that a dispute was over a parking ticket, while Vandervis says it was about signage on a meter. Michael Garbett and Shelley Chadwick are the lawyers for the council. Garbett says Vandervis made full submissions to both councillors and their investigators. He says ultimately councillors decided to censure Vandervis and there would need to be clear procedural error and prejudice for that to be quashed. Justice David Gendel has reserved his decision. In Dunedin, the South today.
Hives of urban bees are already bringing benefits to an Invercargill garden. The Southland Bee Society has set up a new apiary in Falster Gardens in the hope the furry flyers will add to their floral success.
Looking a bit like space-suited visitors, members of the Southland Bee Society explore the floral highlights of Invercargill's Falster Gardens, owned by Trevor Huggins, who says his flowering trees such as golden laburnum are flourishing since a number of beehives were set up in the garden about 4 years ago.
Over the past few years since Jeffrey's had his bees here, the gardens have just flourished even better. From having them here, the plants are seeded more, and it's been, how would you say, sort of quite changing as far as the garden goes by having these critters about.
Southland Bee Society Chairman Jeff Scott has been looking after the hives, and he says the range of plants with different flowering times makes it an ideal place for bees.
Every week of the year there's something flowering for the bees, so it's a hand-in-hand relationship, and this place has boomed. The more bees we're putting here, the better everything's gone, you know. So, and we both work well together. So, and this was a really good place for breeding bees as well, with having that stuff all year round.
And it's also an ideal place for members of the Southland Bee Society to visit, as they now meet at nearby Kennington Hall.
So tonight we've brought them here for a welcome barbecue, to look at the hives, how to set up a site, how the health and safety side of it, what the landowner expects, how you can access the hive all year round, and things like that.
In Invercargill, the South today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, Santa's coming early this year to Wanaka, and a beloved Dunedin radio host hangs up his microphone. See you after the break. Welcome back. Santa has come early to Wanaka, but not all in one piece. 2 trucks have been used to deliver the parts of an almost 20-metre high Santa Claus from Auckland to Wanaka's National Transport and Toy Museum.
All the way from Auckland to central Otago, 2 trucks were used to deliver an 18-metre high Santa Claus to its new home at Wanaka's National Transport and Toy Museum. Truck driver Bill Terry says he doesn't recall transporting anything quite as unusual.
We do all sorts of things, but this would be the most quirky one we've had.
The statue had been costing about $200,000 a year to maintain and was sold to museum owner Jason Rhodes for $1. He's keen to keep on looking after it as a tribute to those who built and maintained the 5-ton statue sheathed in fiberglass.
What we're sort of wanting to do is keep him for posterity. It's the history behind him, right from the people that sort of instigated him, built him, and the ones that have even saved him over the years, because he's had a bit of a checkered history in the last sort of few years, that type of thing. So we just want to make sure that, look, he wasn't going to end up in some rubbish dump or anything like that.
The 60-year-old Santa was designed to lure shoppers in with a wink and a beckon of a finger. But Rhodes is uncertain those animatronics can be reinstated.
We'll have a look because we don't know what's involved. By the look of things, all the mechanisms are gone, so we'd have to just see what's involved to do that sort of thing.
The statue is currently in parts in a hole where Rhodes is planning to extend his museum.
It's the foundation for the next stage of the building for the museum. It's going to be a very long-winded sort of thing because, as you can see, it's not a small hole. And foundation, things like that. So there's a lot of things we're still working through, but look, the bulk of the work is done. Now we've sort of got a bit more engineering behind us that we can sort of start and look forward. Just with everything at the moment, with the virus, all that, look, a lot of the big projects are all on hold at this stage. And we just want to see what's happening around the airport itself, those types of things, and just see what style of building we can sort of really put around that.
The Santa is to be assessed and repaired after Christmas. In Wanaka, the South Today.
A well-known Dunedin radio host is taking a break from the airwaves. Callum Proctor of The Hits has hosted his last breakfast show and is looking to the future.
And the Hits weather for Dunedin, another fine day ahead today, a bit of cloud in the morning.
After 32 years working for radio, Dunedin breakfast show host Callum Proctor is taking a well-earned break. He says even from a very young age he really wanted to work in radio.
As a kid, it was what I wanted to do. I was fascinated with the industry, and when I knocked on the door one day, I just arrogantly asked for a job, which you could do back then, and I was lucky enough to get in through the back door and start as a young fella.
Over time he learned and improved the craft of verbal communication and got the chance to develop his skills along some of the legends of the airwaves.
I mean, I never thought I'd sit alongside Paul Holmes or, even like Neil Collins here, Colin Lehman, and those kind of people. And just watching and learning from them is what kind of helped me develop as a young broadcaster.
He's met some remarkable people along the way, including Lisa Dobson, who became an advocate for breast cancer awareness while fighting the disease herself.
Her story and to inspire other New Zealand women to to get checked regularly, and she was dying of breast cancer when she came in to chat with us, and she was so brave and courageous, and she brought her wee boy in and husband, and it was only a matter of weeks later that she passed away.
Proctor is swapping his headphones and microphone for a job running a courier van, but says he'll stay connected with many of the public events he's been associated with. In Dunedin, the South Today.
3 relocatable houses have gone under the hammer, with one raising funds for charity. The homes were built by carpentry students from the Otago Polytechnic and attracted a crowd of aspiring buyers.
For the second, third and final time at $325,000, ladies and gentlemen, I am sold. Congratulations.
A sizable crowd turned up for this year's auction of 3 houses built by Otago Polytechnic carpentry students. Now in its 13th year, the program sees one house sold with all proceeds going to charity. The house was sold to local couple Barry and Karen Rowe, who have been renting for several years and are looking forward to having their own house again.
The landlord might get a shock if he sees this.
They love us.
Thanks to local sponsors, the charity home is completely fitted out with appliances. In recent years, the houses have sold for little over $250,000. This year, after stiff bidding, the Rows eventually paid $325,000 for the home.
We sort of thought 300. Yeah. And with what they paid for the other houses unfinished, I think we've done pretty well. Yeah.
The Rows are now looking for a section for the relocatable house to be shifted to.
Find somewhere to put it.
That's the problem.
That's the next thing. Yeah.
The other two houses, which are less finished, were both snapped up by a Mosgiel property developer who paid an average of $270,000 for each, with the intention of making them available for sale again once he locates them to a site. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Archery was on the agenda for southern members of Blind Low Vision New Zealand at a Have a Go Day in Invercargill. About 30 members from Dunedin, Gore, Balclutha and Invercargill came together for a sports day where many people held a bow and arrow for the first time.
People who were either blind or with low vision from both Dunedin and Southland got together for a fun sports day in Invercargill yesterday. It was indoor bowls in the morning, and in the afternoon they were taught archery by the Deep South Archery Club. The club's head coach says blind archery is growing in popularity in Australia, and it's something he'd like to see more of in New Zealand.
It's huge, yeah, it really is quite a big sport in Australia, and obviously we've got to start somewhere, and we obviously would be needed to get one or two people here where we would provide the gear and the coaching and get them up to a level that we would anticipate them being competitive at at least a regional level, and then that the sky's the limit.
The blind visitors were coordinated by Robin Bai, who says they're always keen to be exposed to new sports.
I just think we should be out doing more days like this if that's possible. You can tell by everyone, they're really excited about it. It's really nice to be working in with like Artie from Deep South Archery. Without him, we can't have this sports day. So it's really, really nice for other organisations to include us doing sport and recreation.
Having grown up with a disability myself, it's always difficult to fit into any environment. And what we're trying to do here is make sure that these guys are made to feel as they are part of society as normal participating archers. There's we don't look at them as being blind, we just look at them as being archers.
In Invercargill, the South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, a former Central Otago school pupil lands his Air Force chopper at his old school, and we have a look at the Sight Art exhibition in Dunedin. See you soon. Thanks for staying with us. Some recreational fishers are up in arms about a proposal to protect whitebait in West Coast rivers. The Department of Conservation has drawn up a list including 25 West Coast rivers or waterways which could be closed to whitebaiting.
Well, the morons, aren't they?
Haast whitebaiter John Hewer doesn't think much of the suggestions by the Department of Conservation to close a number of West Coast rivers to whitebaiting.
A good kilo in there, at least a kilo.
Hewer says there's been a lot of both cultural and financial investment into catching the juveniles of the 6 native freshwater fish as they swim upstream.
Well, there's thousands of people, families, 3 and 4 generations doing it. They've got batches of poured money into it. Of late, people have poured money into it, big money, Didn't cost us much to get a stand. When we were 15, we were eligible to register for a stand, but now they've got to pay tens of thousands of dollars for them,
The Department of Conservation says studies show that the adults of 4 of the 6 species of whitebait are now threatened or at risk of extinction. However, many West Coast whitebaiters say that while catches vary from year to year, they haven't seen an overall decline in numbers.
Well, it fluctuates from year to year. It's not, but I don't notice any difference in, because we only take what we want. So, I don't know, we don't do it commercially, so you really haven't got a handle on it unless I suppose you do it commercially.
Whitebait, we keep records every year, and records have been going back 100 years for whitebait catches. There's no decline on any of the West Coast rivers from our records.
In fact, Mitchell says whitebait are so prevalent it would be impossible for them to become extinct.
The whitebait come up all year round, and certainly out of the season. They're just going to keep breeding. If you tried to wipe them out, I don't think you ever could.
The list of possible refuges in South Westland includes the Cascade, Smoothwater, Arawhata, Waitoto, Okuru, Haast, Parianga, Manakaiawa and Cook Rivers. In Westland, the South Today.
A Royal Air Force helicopter has landed in Cromwell College, providing a break from class for local pupils. At the aircraft's controls was a former head boy from the school.
A crowd of pupils and teachers were treated with the sight of a Royal New Zealand Air Force NH-90 helicopter landing at Cromwell College, when a former pupil made a flying visit to his old school.
I'm from 3 Squadron Upper here in the Air Force, and I'm the captain of this NH-90 here today, and a previous pupil of Cromwell College here.
The Air Force uses a number of these rotary wing aircraft for quick and easy deployment of troops to potentially remote locations.
We have 8 of these helicopters and crew of 4, and so our main output is supporting the New Zealand Army with troop movement, so we can move 12 fully equipped soldiers at any one time.
10 years ago, Flight Lieutenant Tom McDowell was head boy at the college, and his recent visit was inspired by a childhood memory of a similar event at the school.
I was inspired by a sea sprite that came to land here back in, I would have been 5th or 6th form at the time, and that kind of sparked my interest in the Air Force, and also did a little bit of flying out at Wanaka Aerodrome. I did my first solo out there, and ever since joining the Air Force I've always thought it'd be quite cool to give something back to the school, show off what can be achieved when you set your goals and follow your aspirations. Yeah.
McDowell's parents and grandmother were also present for the occasion. In Cromwell, the South Today.
Otago Polytechnic's School of Art has turned into a massive art gallery as the institution holds its annual end-of-year exhibition. The head of the art school says she's proud of all of her students' work and says they can all go on to careers in the field as they develop their own practice. From massive shears to light shining through prints on material and a combination of painting and embroidery with its own soundtrack, there's an outstanding collection of vibrant artistic styles at every turn at Otago Polytechnic.
Well, site's interesting because what it is it's the it's the product of a combination of an exhibition and an examination process. So in a sense it's curated by the students themselves. They put their work up for examination, and in association with the works you see, they will have explained their work to an external examiner and their internal examiner, and they would have shown documentation.
School of Art head of school Bridie Loney says, like with other facets of society, COVID-19 had a profound effect on students, but she says they've risen to the challenge, exceeding expectations.
First of all, I want to say that this is of the same, if not better quality as a normal year, which in my estimation means that it is 20% better than any other year we've ever had.
She says students couldn't access their workspaces and ongoing projects for 2 months of the lockdown. Loney says the graduates' work is of a high enough standard to be placed in any gallery.
Each student has taken risks in different ways, experimented in their own ways. So what you have is quite clear, different idiosyncratic voices, and you also have technical skills.
Following a trail of flyers, you end up in a room well off the beaten path. It's the campaign headquarters of the Soap Party, whose election campaign failed miserably. The multimedia installation is the work of Samantha Mitchell, and comprises her final year graduate piece. Loney says art school graduates acquire a host of skills during their study.
It might take 10 years to become a self-supporting artist. This is known across the profession. They also graduate with a whole lot of transferable skills. So they will tend to work in self-employment, if you like, as artists, developing their skills. They will work in all sorts of other areas.
Site opens tonight and runs over Saturday and Sunday at the Dunedin School of Art. In Dunedin, the South Today. With Christmas approaching, some Dunedin youngsters are improving their ability to write and spell by composing a letter to Santa Claus. Carisbrook school pupils have also been telling the jolly man with the red suit what good things they've been doing this year.
These youngsters at Carisbrook School have been improving their writing and spelling by sending a letter to Santa Claus.
We're writing a letter to Santa Claus, and we're starting our letter by explaining what we've been doing to help at home, letting Santa know how good we've been, and then we're going to write down what we would like from Santa Claus before we sign our letters off.
New Zealand Post endeavours to respond to all letters addressed to Santa Claus that arrive before the 8th of December, and those sent as online messages before the 23rd of December. The letters from Carisbrook school pupils include many accounts of having made their bed and tidied their bedroom.
I write, Dear Santa, I like to help my mum and I tidy up my bed.
Well, I cleaned my room. I cleaned my room last night, the whole room.
Letters to Santa Claus are free to post to Santa Claus, care of Santa's Workshop, North Pole, postcode 0001. In Dunedin, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.